So, hello everyone. Happy Friday. Happy end of the week. And just thanks for joining us. Tonight I have a great pleasure. I am joined by, I would say former reviewer because she has graduated into doing art and her own creative work and is building an even more creative future. I'm joined by Ink Rose.
Hello! Happy to be here.
Oh, that's excellent. I have to start off with an apology. I started the stream without giving proper, okay, here we go. It's like, so, improv. Hi!
Hello! I'm a Groose. Oh,
Oh,
wait, you cut out a little bit.
oh no, it's happening again.
I can still hear you pretty well, though.
Okay.
Oh, it says it's back. Alright.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Thank you, Sweetie Bloom.
Yes, everyone. Please join me in wishing Inkros a happy birthday. And she was very kind to spend some of that birthday time with us.
Woohoo, I'm 22 now. Yay! Finally, past the
The initial stage, well,
initial stage of adulthood.
initial stage. Well, I'll share a secret as someone who's creeping up on 40. If you're waiting for lightning to strike and suddenly all the world makes sense, don't hold your breath.
Yeah.
It's all
That's
crazy in the
not gonna
moment,
happen.
but we have fun and make the most sense of it as we can, with as much
Mhm.
fun as we can. And that includes drawing. So, following up from last week, folks who got to tune in my stream with Sky, you saw the start of this interior of Twilight's castle, which
Nice.
still has this very ominous green. I don't
Hmm.
really like the green in these windows. It's just that shade of green that reminds you of poison rather than vitality.
Yeah. Are those supposed to be windows? I can't tell if they're like uh in terms of the design of the castle, like if they're supposed to be windows or stained glass windows, maybe?
I think they're stained
Same.
glass, but where are they in relation to the outside is beyond me.
Yeah. Because they've all got this like the same tree design on it, so that leads me to believe it's not window, just like stained glass. Hmm.
So, a mystery wrapped in an enigma, but it makes for an easy party area. So it
Yeah,
probably gets Pinkie Pie approved.
exactly.
So, but this was just the background to the main piece, and the main piece was a supplement to Alicorn. Ink, I don't know if you've checked out the shorts that were on YouTube.
Alicorn.
It
I have not.
it answers the question of what happens when an alicorn catches a cold.
Oh, okay, I get the name now. That's funny.
And well, at the risk of spoilers, it ended with Twilight drinking a potion from Zakura, because of course Zakura has a potion to fix this. And one side effect is that it instantly cured the cold and reined in her rampaging magic, but it also reverted her to fillyhood.
Oh no.
So the patron request I got was Flurry and Heart and Twilight having sort of a filly play date. Well,
Hmm.
Twilight Velvet, Twilight's mother, gets to see what's happening. And so I get to envision the reaction of Twilight's mom to, oh, my daughter has reverted back to fillyhood. And you can imagine I'm going to have plenty of expressions. So
Yeah, no kidding.
there we go.
That definitely sounds rife for potential.
So what y'all see here are basically vector bases I've drawn of Spike, who of course this was a bit of a low blow. As soon as Twilight reverted, her friends turned her over to Spike and Amscrade.
Hmm.
But so Spike has been left in charge. So if Flurry's Heart's there, of course Cadence would be there. I'd be worried otherwise.
Yeah.
And then of course Twilight Velvet, and a couple other things. But I'm gonna be working on just sort of a play date for the foals and the parents' reactions. But
Nice.
while doing so, we'll have the chance to catch up, chat things up, and answer questions from the audience.
Perfect.
So let's start things up with just how are you doing?
I would say I'm doing really well. I'm kind of at a big, like, weird crossroads in life at the moment because I'm I'm currently getting my bachelor's at the Art Institute of Houston, and I'm going to graduate in October. I know that's weird. The reason why it's October is because my school runs on like a quarterly schedule instead of a semester schedule. So whenever I get whatever quarter I get my all my classes done in is the quarter I graduate in. So I'll be graduating in the summer quarter.
Nice.
So that which ends in October. So yeah, I'll finally have my bachelor's in game art and design. So it's all about learning how to do concept art drawing, how to do game environment art, as well as 3D modeling and rigging and animation. So very just much just game related art stuff, as the title implies.
That's excellent. And well, I'm betting the stuff that's posted on ArtStation is a good resource for inspiration. And
Mm-hmm.
for everyone to know, Ink's ArtStation page is listed in the description, along with her website and Twitter, and her well, actually, yes, you have a full website and a book listing.
Mm-hmm. Um, in regards to the art station, one of the reasons I linked it is because if anyone wants to like follow along when I'm talking about art stuff, you'll be able to go there and just see like my full portfolio. That's what I'm like gonna be using as my advertisement to employers soon. Once I graduate, I'm gonna be like applying for a bunch of places like Riot Games and all these other game studios to see where I can get hired. And it's going to be a really exciting and really big moment. Really. As for the book listing, that it is for my newest book, which is called Spectral Lakes Blackwater. And that book is a paranormal mystery story involving lots of paranormal ghosts and a whole bunch of crazy things happening. I can't really talk too much about it, but it's a pretty short book and it's going to be kind of like an episodic type of thing. And also, I'm doing like a reading of it on my YouTube channel. So that's kind of the big projects going on.
Sounds like a good deal right there. I'm impressed at how much you're tackling.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse because there's so much I'm trying to do right now that sometimes it gets hard to try to do everything because my mind wants to like finish all this stuff up, but I have to make sure that I'm not overwhelming myself by doing all these different projects because there's 3 different major personal projects I'm working on, and I guess what's cool about it though is that when I get burnt out on one of them, I can switch to the other one. When I get burnt out on that one, I can switch to the next one and so forth. So that way I never feel like I'm super creatively burnt out because I always have a different project I can just work on instead. So it's it's overwhelming, but like it's also fun in the sense that I don't have to put all my effort into one thing if I don't want to work on it anymore.
Excellent. I like your thinking.
Yeah.
Let's see here. There we are. I'm always a little finicky with this stroke. There you are. Ooh. So, one does have to ask, when do you sleep in the middle of all this?
Not enough. Well, I do sleep, but like late.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yep.
Cre- Creativity demands odd hours.
Yep. Exactly. It's one of those things where if I'm working on a project for the day, I really, really want to finish it before I go to sleep. So that's what leads to late hours. So I do get enough sleep, but just not in the best way, best time to do it.
It was not the best of times for sleep. It was not the worst of times for sleep.
Yeah.
I always loved the Cheers take on that. Wow, that Dickens guy really covers it both ways.
Hmm. He puts it succinctly.
Very. So I gotta ask, with if you had pie in the sky, what would you love to work on as a game?
Oh, you cut out a little bit on the end there. What would I love to work on as?
uh, in terms of a game, either for a company or perhaps just the topic of a game. Uh oh, am I lost?
Oh, just the topic of.
Uh, top either game company you'd like to work for or a type of game you'd like to work on.
Ooh, okay. So the game company I most want to work for is Riot Games, which works on League of Legends and that new game Valorant coming out, and Legends of Runeterra. So the reason I want to work for them so much is that they're kind of the game company that their art style and 3D work is the one that really inspired me to want to work on games. I just love their art style so much, as well as the writing, the lore, the world building. It's all really impressive, and they have one of the best team art teams in the entire industry. It's insane. And then at one point, I was able to actually take a tour of their campus in Santa Monica, California. That was a couple of years ago. Actually, I have a photo of my time there on my website. It was incredible. I definitely was not at the skill level then to be hired as an intern, but I feel like now I've been really, really pushing to try to get to that level. And it's if you look on my if you guys look on my art station, you'll find like a bunch of League of Legends esque skin concepts and character concepts that I put on there just specifically to try to get into the internship program this year. Unfortunately, I was not accepted this year or last year or the year before, which just means that I've got to keep working and try to keep getting better at it, as well as like I keep asking for advice, keep studying, keep doing all that type of thing. Try to get better because it's literally one of the best places in the industry in terms of skill level. So it's not like I'll get in there right away.
There's always a period, and you've got the right attitude. I was got a kick. Yeah, if you ever read Stephen King on writing his own book, he talks about how many times he got rejected. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and this is Stephen King we're talking about.
Exactly.
So,
Or even how many times uh, J.K. Rowling was rejected before her books were published. It was a lot. And the only reason she happened to get published was because, like, the daughter of one of the publishers read the manuscript and begged her dad to publish it. So it's like one of those things that you just have to keep looking out for. And also, in terms of my books, for both of my books, I reached out to hundreds and hundreds of literary agents and did the whole letter that you're supposed to write to the query letter that you write to literary agents in order to try to get them to work with you. Hundreds and hundreds of them I wrote to. Never got positive response back. Most of the time, they don't even reply to you because they literally get so many messages about people asking to be represented that they can't respond to all of them, which is understandable. It really hurt because for my first book, it was like, okay, I get it. It's my first book. My writing isn't up to snuff. But for my second one, for Spectral Lakes, I went out and actually hired an editor for my work, and he really helped me polish it up and make it professional level. So I was pretty disappointed that none of the agents wanted to pick it up. So instead, I was like, well, time to self-publish again. I've done this before, I can do it again.
Hmm.
And so I planned to do a lot more sales of it this year, but unfortunately, because of all of the events going on, uh, all the conventions were canceled.
Yeah.
I couldn't make money that way. So now it's mostly just me taking commissions as well as contract work from people and working on characters for advertising purposes and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice.
Very. Have you thought about going to a convention like Everfree Northwest?
Oh, unfortunately, I can't really go to anything out of state due to like
Well,
tickets and
oh well,
yeah,
I
that type
guarantee.
of thing.
Unfortunately, last weekend we learned Everfree will not be taking place this year. Just thinking aloud for the future. I still have hope for the future, if nothing else.
Hmm.
But I just know you'd be more than welcome at conventions, and people would love to see your creative work.
Thank you.
Let's see here.
We have actually. It is a little easier for us to travel now because we've been working on. Like, we've been getting this like RV, and so we've been using that to drive around Texas when we need to. So I mostly have been looking at Texas conventions, but also stuff that's slightly out of Texas is good for us to drive to. So I'll have to look around and see what stuff is being, what conventions are actually coming back for later this year.
Well, in terms of this year, I'm not sure any convention, but 2021, I'm banking on it. Say,
Mm,
please
yep.
please be kind to us, 2021.
Exactly.
Now, while you're driving around, and this ties into a question from the chat, what do you like to listen to? What are some favorite genres?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, well, when I am driving, I really love to listen to either true crime podcasts or music. And some of my favorite the music kind of delves into another topic, which is the fact that my stories are usually inspired by music. A lot of what I write is. And so, depending on what genre of music I'm listening to, it kind of changes what story I'm thinking about. So if it's like epic fantasy music or video game music, I'm usually thinking about my story Dragon Queen and developing it while listening. And for if it's like synthy, mysterious music, sometimes vocal music, I like thinking about Spectral Lakes and my mystery story. And if it's something that's, I listen to a lot of electro swing, a lot of electro swing, a lot of oldies from the 40s, 20s, and 30s, some 50s, but mostly 20s, 30s, 40s. I listen to a lot of that. So those are for my kind of retro futuristic story, Mariposa, which I haven't revealed a lot of quite yet, but it's more of a very fun type of story, fun and very musically inspired. So usually when I'm driving, it's all daydreaming about stories while I listen to music.
It's funny. I am the same way. Music just fuels the ideas, and it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like I have a soundtrack for my story.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see,
It's such a great way.
I remember when I was I still tinker with this. I too would like to enter the being a published author one day. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I like to listen to power metal, which
Yeah.
and funny enough, I like light rock, but I also listen to J-pop, especially if it's a theme to
Mm.
a show I enjoy. An artist named Beverly this year put out "Be the One," a theme song to a common writer, but in English. And having listened to
Mm.
it already in Japanese, I was like, "Wow, this is really great to hear."
Yeah.
And it's just mostly I like songs that just sound hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
And well, right now that's sometimes that can be in short supply.
Yeah.
Okay, I a critique of American music. We are depressing.
Yeah.
Even in the light rock genre. I'm not even talking about stuff that's intentionally trying to be, heavy. Uh, Most songs on the radio I hear are about breakups, not being able to fall in love, or just being generally frustrated.
Hmm.
What? It's like, wow. Is anyone having just a good time? Anybody?
Yep. That's why I listen to electro swing. It's very positive.
I didn't even. I don't think I'd ever heard of that genre. I'm gonna have to look this up.
It's kind of like it's literally just swing music, swing type music, but with electro added to it.
Nice.
So it's just imagine swing music with a lot of bass and remixing. It's really fun. I can easily it's probably the most popular band for it is Caravan Palace and Parov Stellar. Those are the two kind of main sources of the more popular ones. And I actually went to Caravan Palace, one of their concerts last year in Austin. It was really fun. The venue was terrible. The music was great.
Well, better that than the other way around. This place is so
Yeah.
awesome. Too bad the band stinks.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Another tangential question, TF2 related. Why did I use Lightning Bliss as a shield during a live action TF2 video? This was at Nightmare Night several years ago. We were reenacting scenes from Seven Nation Army, including where I had Lightning Bliss's plushie and saying, I have weaponized cuteness. And the real Lightning Bliss comes out and it's like, stop taking my stuff. So I thought it'd be funny to still have weaponized cuteness, so I took her by the shoulders and directed her as a semi-adorable shield. Adora shield.
Nice.
So it's the improv of accept and further. I can't keep the Lightning Bliss plushie, doesn't mean I can't still troll. Because that's how I roll.
Yep. She should be honored.
Let's see here. And let's see. I have a question on Yona the Yak, but there's the thing, Ink. I don't know. Have you been watching MLP, or has it just been sort of on the fringes?
A little bit. I kind of got up to. I think I got up to like before the school was founded, so I don't really know much at all about the school characters. But then I did watch some of the finale as well, like the ending of the finale. So I
Ah,
know kind of where the characters end up.
well, Yona does a lot. I'd argue that she's gotten the most focus of all the students. She
Hmm.
has single-handedly changed my opinion of yaks in general, which is fantastic.
I do remember that yak episode, and it was not very. I didn't like that one that much. One
Uh,
with Pinkie Pie and the yaks.
I mean, well, I learned over time. No, I don't hate the yaks. I just hate Rutherford. He's a bad leader. He's a bad leader. And so, but Yona especially won me over. But at the same time, you reach the point where like there are several other students. I feel like they've been neglected. Or like
Hmm.
I'm Yona out here. Give me. Let Silverstream do something for crying out loud. Hippogriff representing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I don't want to spoil in case you want to just catch up, but Silverstream probably has gotten the least focus out of all the students. Even an episode
Hmm.
that really focused on her, she was missing for most of it.
Hmm.
So like,
That seems strange.
well, it's just comes with the turf.
Yeah.
Now, going back to music though, I'm curious. Uh, what is there a particular song that just jumped out and like, oh my gosh, I this totally fits my story.
Ooh, yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is the soundtrack for this little indie game called Oxenfree. That soundtrack was the direct inspiration for Spectral Lake's story. So while I was always listening to it on my things on my drives back and forth to school, I really thought of, well, how would I write a paranormal mystery story with ghosts? How would I do that? As I was listening to the music, and the characters and the story started forming in my mind. I kept thinking about it over and over, organizing like all the little story bits into different places and figuring out exactly what I wanted to happen. And over our time, it evolved into what it is now in the book. So originally, I wanted it to be an animated show. And so I actually put together a pitch Bible and pitched it to the few networks that would allow me to pitch without an agent, which was Frederator and Adult Swim. Adult Swim actually does these live streams where they have people sign up and then are able to come on and pitch their show live. And my pitch actually went really well, but they told me as I was doing it, "Is it a comedy?" And I said, "It is not." And they said, "Darn, well, we don't do things that aren't comedy." And I was like, "Okay."
Makes
So
sense.
then I tried pitching to Frederator, and they also told me, "Is it comedy?" "No, it's not comedy. Sorry, we don't do non comedy." And that was it.
Man,
So, yeah.
it's hard. It's hard for people to be super serial.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
It was funny.
Mhm.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I kind of get that Adult Swim because they've got a long history of that, but I worry that if now they're assuming paranormal mystery has to be comedic. I mean, that's not
Mhm.
true. If anything, that's doing the genre a disservice.
Mhm.
But that's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Oh no, it's fine. I cut you off. um, with in terms of um, one of the reasons I made Spectral Lakes was because I really wanted to have a show that is animated and geared toward, yeah, adults slash teenagers that wasn't a comedy. Because all adult animated shows these days are comedies, with the exception of like Castlevania, which even then is very not even, I wouldn't say necessarily geared towards teenagers. It's very gory. Um, so it's still very, very adult. So what I wanted to do with Spectral Lakes was have something that was different in that sense. And Gravity Falls was really great for our families. And Spectral Lakes, I wanted to be something that was more mature and not as humor focused. Though I find it funny that the company I pitched to, Frederator, is the ones that helps produce Castlevania. So it's kind of funny that they were still having a no comedy, no non comedy rule when they already published an adult animated show that's not comedy. I just found that a little ironic. But alas, since I wasn't able to pitch it anywhere, I decided to just go for book since I had already written the Dragon Queen book and instead make it like an episodic illustrated book series. And yeah, so that's where I'm at now with it.
And you never know. Just because people aren't hearing the pitch right now doesn't mean things won't change.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's great that you're doing these pitches and if nothing else getting the practice because
Yes, exactly.
that only strengthens the odds later on.
Mm-hmm. It's always good to get that experience on like talking in front of other people and really being able to get the essence of your story down and being able to communicate it easily.
Have you gotten to go to any writing conferences?
I have not, unfortunately.
Oh, I'd recommend them because,
Sounds interesting.
well, I've been especially to the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Conference. They have agents there, and you can schedule pitch sessions with them.
Oh, what was this? The Rocky Mountain.
Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Conference. I heartily endorse it. And yet, with all the pony stuff that's been going on, I've fallen behind in attending. So I need to fix that.
Mm, nice. I wrote that down.
My, uh, but they have like some they. It's several days of panels talking about both the craft of writing and also the business of getting published, and also these wonderful dinners with the keynote speaker. And there have been such powerful stories they've told about writing.
Mm,
I think one of my favorites is a woman who she was at her low point, really considering just giving up on the whole thing. When I forget the exact circumstances that she wound up in, of all places, a graveyard,
mm,
and on a memorial stone, it read "Triumph through endurance." And she swore that night that she was always going to be a writer, no matter what.
mm.
And now there she was years later, uh, a keynote speaker at a very popular writing conference. So I think she could tell the story far better than I'm recounting, but it was just stunning to hear this. There was
That's
also
amazing.
there was also a writer who he read letters from readers. Wouldn't call it fans, because all it was about a dozen letters pointing out a typo on page 38. That's it. And sometimes really condescending, like you'd think a published author would know how to spell check.
Ooh.
But then he capped it off with a letter from a person serving in the army saying, I loved your book. Thank you for making another deployment a little easier. And you could
Mm,
feel all the tension brought on by these more hostile letters just evaporate as people heard that.
mm.
So I would
That's so cool.
I definitely recommend a writing conference to hear other people's experiences, to get some ideas, or maybe to host a panel yourself.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I have one of my favorite experiences hosting a panel was doing one at um, Delta H Con. It was this little smaller con here in the Houston area, like an anime convention. And I'd hosted a panel there before, like the year before, that was world building and character building panel. And I'd done it, and very few people showed up, but I still was like, yeah, I've got this. This is great. And so the next year when I came back, I did it again, and more people showed up, and it was a small little panel room, and but most of the seats were taken up, and it was really encouraging. And I ended up doing the panel again, and then this mother and daughter come up after the panel, and they tell me we had seen your original panel last year and loved it, but the one this year was like a huge improvement. It was really nice to see, and that really was encouraging for me. I was like, yes, I was able to improve on the panel. So the experience I'd had before had already led to making it better the next time around, which is just so great. And it also is exactly the experience I've had when it comes to writing. Like how my first book I love, but the second book I feel like got even better, especially when I was able to hire a professional editor for it.
Oh, excellent. That the goal is always to be just a little bit better than the last.
Mm-hmm.
But excellent. I'm glad to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. See another question in the chat asking, "What's the longest I've ever gone not trolling someone?" 5 minutes. I tend to default to the trolling pretty quickly. If I troll you, that means I think highly of you.
Yep, makes sense.
Also, that I feel that you are able to accept the trolling and not that I won't genuinely hurt your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm unsure, then I'm gonna hold off just a little. Just gonna give it a little time. Otherwise, I feel bad.
Oh, from Matt, where did the passion for your art originate from?
Oh, yes. Good question.
Oh, there's actually a story behind this. Um, I mean, when I was like 3 or 4, I would draw like all the time, just like little stick figures and stuff. And then at one point, I started writing little books and then stapling them together and drawing pictures with them. I made a story about my sister getting kidnapped and about my parents and I having to rescue her. I was like 4 years old, 5 years old. That's when my sister was born. 5 years old. And what was funny though is that, especially when I was even younger than that, I didn't really know how to write down stuff very well. My handwriting was terrible, as it tends to be for very small children. So I would actually get my parents to write down what I wanted on the pages. I like dictated to them, write this please, right here above this picture. It was really, it was like funny. And then later on in life, though, I kind of switched what I wanted to do. When I was 7, I wanted to be a spy. When I got older, just like impossible. And then when I was a little older than that, I wanted to be a fashion designer, and I ended up like actually going to a little mini class on sewing and fashion designing, and drew a whole bunch of dresses in my spare time. But I think the time I really settled on what I wanted to do was when I played this game called Epic Mickey. It was on the Wii, and it was like this platforming game starring Mickey Mouse. What was so interesting about it is that it was super. It was a little dark and a little edgy, which was like, ooh, cool, interesting, Mickey Mouse, but edgy. And then, um, I ended up playing that game, and there was so much references in it to animation history and theme park history of Disneyland, and character history, and that really inspired me to start looking into actual Disney animation history and watch like behind the scenes stuff and look into how these movies were made. And that ended up like extreme, like flipping the switch on in me and realizing I really want to be an artist for stories, and be that through animation or through gaming. And League of Legends is kind of what cemented in it that I definitely want to do video games too. So it just kind of evolved from there, and I've been just trying to get better and better ever since.
That's
So I've
awesome.
kind of just always been writing ever since my first memories.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's kind of funny when you'd say you dictated and your parents would help you write it down. I did the same thing. Uh, I think I drove my dad a little nuts as I would commandeer our computers. My family still recounts that when I tried to write things by hand, it was too slow. My hands couldn't keep up with my brain, so I lost interest very quickly. But once I got on a computer, oh, I know some artists stick to the purity of the handwritten word. I'm having none of that. Give me a keyboard and give me a couple hundred words a minute if I can help it.
Hmm.
So, but I'm thrilled to hear. I used to draw stories in notebooks.
Mm.
My family's probably spent a small fortune just buying spiral notebooks, and they were awful stories. I could freely admit that now.
Well, of course. There's always that when we first start writing.
Well,
Wasn't that in a quote from Lauren Faust, actually, that where she was saying something about she has like 10,000 bad drawings before she did good drawings, and even then still makes bad drawings?
I go by the
I
saying
think
that
it was Lauren Faust.
I like to think awakening as a creative is the same as waking up in the day. Well, the first things you got to do is get the poo out.
Yeah.
So everyone,
That
feel free
makes a
to.
lot of sense.
If anyone inscribes that on a tombstone, I'll ask why. But that's their prerogative.
Hey, it's a good quote.
Oh, Champ to Stay asks, "What is your favorite song from a cartoon?"
Oh, from a cartoon. Well, I remember I used to, of course, very much. I still love the song of the Stay aria from MLP.
Mm.
Uh, I gotta say, I really love the opening theme of Gravity Falls because without words, it tells you exactly what you need to know about the show. It has like these upbeat and jaunty moments, but there's such an underlying feeling of mystery and discovery. I love it. Gravity Falls theme is definitely one of my top favorites from cartoons. Um, but oh, one that is more recent is from an anime, Promise Neverland. I don't know if you count cartoons and anime within this particular question, but Promise Neverland is probably one of my favorite newer animes, and there's this theme in it called Isabella's Lullaby that is played at the end of the show, and it is very emotional and very good, and has inspired me. So that's another answer, I guess.
I've scoped out some of the manga on the Shonen Jump website of Promise
Mm-hmm.
Neverland. I get the sense it's one dark anime.
Oh, yes. But what I definitely appreciate and love about it is that even though the premise is very dark, there's always a sense of familial love and care, always throughout it. And that helps. Like, when it comes to the dark times, helps get through it, is that these characters love each other so much and they're always willing to sacrifice for one another. And there's always moments of joy, even amidst the darkness. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about it. Unlike certain other stories that may have come out today in video game form that people are complaining about because it is just incredibly needlessly dark. I won't say which game, but okay, it's The Last of Us 2. Everyone's bagging on Last of Us 2 because it's extremely dark and extremely pointless. But I'm not gonna say any spoilers for it, of course.
No spoilers, but yeah, I've just checking out social media during breaks today. It was like, oh, I didn't know this. This is out. Oh, wow. Oh, people are mad. Oh.
Yeah.
I'll I'll watch the YouTube cutscenes maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this,
That's what I've been doing, just to see a scope out, like if I would like it. And no, it's not for me.
I
Not for me personally.
I this is probably testament to my shame as a gamer. These days, I think I've watched more YouTube videos of cutscenes from games just to get the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm at the point now where I'm like, I don't really need to play a game. Just give me a good story.
Mm-hmm. Definitely depends on the person. Honestly, sometimes when you're so busy with doing other stuff, the fact that you're able to at least experience the story of a game through YouTube is pretty great. Like it's better to at least see the cutscenes of it than not be able to play it at all.
Very true. And sometimes, well, I will say,
Mm-hmm.
if there's like a level that where the game suddenly makes more sense, that I feel like that's fair because that is the whole point of a game. But
Mm-hmm.
normally, I find that the cutscenes really, and also what users provide of gameplay, where like a character will be speaking important information, they provide that, and I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that effort.
Oh yeah, like those YouTube channels that provide uh, not the entire game, but the most important cutscenes as well as important dialogue from gameplay segments. They edit all that stuff together. That's like a big feat, and I really appreciate when they do that because it's easy to just clip all the cutscenes in. It's hard to actually put in parts of the gameplay experience that are really helpful, but not put the entire game. It's an art of its own.
Well, although I will say my one of my favorite gaming videos does technically feature cutscenes, but it changes the game. I don't know if you've ever heard of the game Subnautica.
Oh, yeah. I
Well,
haven't played it.
a gaming channel called Neebs Gaming they have a playthrough of it, but they added a twist because the main character never speaks. Most of the events are in game. There's no cutscenes, but they
Mhm.
gave the character a voice and role played him talking with tech support as he tries to survive on this alien planet.
That sounds great. That reminds me of Freeman's Mind, which was like a Half-Life Let's Play where there was like a voice actor doing the like what Dr. Freeman was actually thinking as he's going through all this. It's great.
And Freeman is
Love
this
that type of stuff.
this narcissistic anger anger volcano.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, I love Freeman's Mind. I have to check out more. Freeman's Mind 2 tackles Half-Life 2. I have no idea what it'll do
Mm.
afterwards. But yeah, it's like Guerrilla Gaming, I think is the channel.
Mm.
But yeah, I love Freeman's Mind. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. And
Especially
there's also that VR Half-Life Let's Play where all of the NPCs are are sophisticated AI that are able to respond to the person, but in reality, it's just a bunch of people acting as the NPCs and going with him throughout the game. It's really funny.
ooh, what channel is
It's really
this?
funny. Um, Jeez, I don't remember the name of the channel, but if you just look up on YouTube, Half Life, but the AI is self aware. That's what it's called,
Ooh.
and it's like it's really funny. Except and the characters actually go through like they all have their certain quirks that are just really funny. If you're into like improv type comedy, that is pretty much exactly what it is.
Alrighty. Well then that's something I'll want to check out because hey, I'm all for finding the game within the game.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just to once again in the chat, I want to give a shout out to Wyatt, who shares a birthday with Ink Rose. So happy birthday, Wyatt!
Oh, happy birthday! Congratulations to you as well.
Excellent. I'm glad we could still celebrate birthdays, even with all that's going on. Which raises the
Mhm.
question: are you going to do anything special for today, or maybe just extend the celebration to this whole weekend?
Actually, today we went to an escape room, and this is
Oh,
my first time doing one.
well, what'd
And
you
it
think?
was I really we loved it, and we got it in time. We did it in time. We had like 3 minutes to spare. It was one of the longer escape rooms. It was like a 90-minute one. So it was themed around dragons and wizards, and the room was like really well themed, and there's a lot of amazing stuff in it, and the puzzles were fun. So all my family, we were just going in and doing it together. And it's really funny because one of the third room you go into for this one was a dungeon room, and it was really dark. So my dad became the light bearer and brought out his phone and used it as a flashlight. So he was the light bearer mage. It
What?
was really funny.
What? They didn't have like a troll come out and say that's cheating.
Thankfully, no. We were allowed to use our phones to use the flashlights on them because we had to be able to see like the symbols on some of this stuff.
Well,
It was really fun though.
I imagine that's the ancient and honored spell of avoiding a lawsuit.
Yes, exactly.
But still, I think that would be funny. It's just, suddenly I'm having this image of Riddle of the Sphinx, except someone pulls out their smartphone and the Sphinx is like, "Oh, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
You, you know what?
Like,
You automatically lose."
yeah.
I mean,
Wasn't there that a scene in like MLP with a character who goes up to a sphinx and is like riddle sphinx?
there was a Sphinx. It was more. Well, I guess it was more of a trust test. It didn't really.
Oh.
Wait, no, it did have a riddle. It wasn't the usual though. It was very much tied into the theme of hope. And
Hmm.
and I remember the Sphinx was really popular for a while thereafter, but I know some fads within the fashion end after the season that spawned them.
Mm-hmm.
Case in
I,
point.
I just I remember she had a really nice design. I think that's probably why she was so popular.
Very. Then the Kirans came along, and everybody wanted a Kiran OC.
Yeah, and the song in that episode was pretty interesting too.
Oh, I
It's
loved
been
it.
a while since I've seen it, but the designs were great on the Karens.
Oh, I loved that episode. It doesn't hurt that it starred my favorite characters.
Hmm.
So, if anyone in the chat does know the actual riddle of the Sphinx, I'd be grateful. It's escaping me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one question from Trinary is having to interact with folks from the show. Is there someone with whom you felt a strong rapport or really connected with? In my case, I had the great pleasure of talking with Jim Miller at several conventions. And we talked a lot about not only storytelling, but the meaning behind stories, why it often means more than just the immediate plot. And so I was very happy to connect on that and have that conversation with him. Although I told this story to Full Papers a couple sessions ago, but he even asked a panel at one of my he asked a panel. He asked a question at a panel I did at Nightmare Nights, but I was on the main stage and the lights were so bright I couldn't see his face. So it wasn't until later that he said, "Oh, thanks for answering my question." I'm sorry, what? Oh my god, I answered Jim Miller's question. Did I answer it? Well, I don't know.
Oh.
Have given you've been applying to for games, taking part in streams. Has there been a member of the gaming community or writing community with whom you've really felt a connection?
Um, I would say it's been pretty hard for me to. Well, you mean like in terms of professional people who are actually in the industry, or just people in general?
Let's go people in general, because you never know how a connection can influence and inspire.
Yeah. Oh, I would say you would hate me for saying this.
Nah.
um, so my some of my best friends have been really inspiring for me, and they we would like talk back and forth about our stories and stuff, and give feedback on um, what we're working on. So they've been really great to talk with, and uh, as well as we game together too. So like we've been playing new games, and so it's mostly just been general friendship things, nice stuff.
Oh, I'm not mad at that answer at all. If anything, I'm happy. It's great when friends can share a passion, parallel play. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I tried to get my friends involved in MLP, and it took an anime convention in LA before they really took more of an interest in it. I could not represent.
Mm,
So, and even
interesting. So what was it that won them over?
I think basically because we were at an anime convention, I think they felt more in their element. So a friend and I, and here's the thing about this was Anime Expo.
Mm-hmm.
The lines at Anime Expo are exceptional to the point where
Yeah.
I didn't get to go into more than two panels the whole convention. The MLP one was lighter attendance, and that's why we got to go in. The highlight though was when I was in line and I was like, "Hey, this line's really short. I'll get to go in. I'll get to see this. How would you survive a giant monster attack?" Well, they opened a door, and it turned out that that room was the waiting room for the line to this other room. So basically, they they opened the door and another line came out, and I was like, "Well, time to go spend money in the merchant hall again."
Yeah.
But because because this was one of the few panels we could really get into, and and I think they talked just about the enjoyment. They didn't really focus on the episode or the characters. I think whereas I was trying to get them involved in the show, the panel talked more about the storytelling and the production techniques, and as such, it won people. I think it won even non-fans over because you're approaching it from a relatable perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, these ponies are cute and great, but look at what they're doing with the storytelling techniques.
Hmm.
Look at how
That's really neat.
look at how the music matches the beats of the action. So I took some notes on from that convention and that presentation. Now, I should mention as I'm working on Twilight's rather scary face at the moment, uh, one of the requests is that the Flurry is a very exceptional baby in more ways than one. The usual look for foals is this big monotone eye with a highlight, but the request specifically stated give Twilight regular eyes. I the person does not like the he views it as a lazy approach to design. I rather enjoy the foal designs, and
Hmm.
I even though they're not nearly as dynamic as these eyes, I find those little button eyes very expressive. Spe-
Yeah, I think it helps a lot to distinguish between the different ages. I can understand why one might not like them in the same way sometimes people don't like Funko Pops because of their black little eyes. I think in the way of this fold though, it works to really show their tininess and their little babies.
well, but I think New Eyes demands a change to the head shape because, well, you change one element in it, and everything should change to match it.
Hmm.
So we're going freestyle here. I,
Yeah.
I won't actually freestyle. I like you all too much for that. It's cruel and unusual punishment. But
It's fun to play around with shapes in that way.
I'm curious. We talked. You had an ArtStation account. I'm curious. Do you have some favorite designers on that site?
Ooh, yes. Um, Let me think. Let me actually go on to the site just because I can get their names right. Someone who was extremely kind was this lady called. Let me get her here. Natalie Pellman. And I messaged her on ArtStation because she was hired to be an intern at Riot Games. So she was actually accepted for it. And so I messaged her and asked her for advice on my portfolio. And she answered like all my questions on what it was like working as an internship there and what she was, and how the interview process was like and all that. And so she answered that. And she gave me a bit of feedback on my portfolio, and it was really nice. And she's extremely kind, and her artwork is great. So, yeah, Natalie Pellman, it's really nice to me, and she has some great work on there. And I think she just graduated from which college was it? Let me see here. Oh, it's not working. She just graduated from her art school, so it's really cool for her. And I hope she has a good career. And as for some of my other favorites, oh, it would definitely have to be Matt Rhodes. He used to work at BioWare as an artist on Mass Effect and Dragon Age, concept artist. And then he ended up doing his own personal work called Turellian. And it was an entire epic story told only with illustrative pictures and no dialogue. And he just finished it up recently. It was 3 years of work, and it's all on his ArtStation as well as his website, and it's incredible. Really fun story. Highly recommend.
Sorry.
It's pretty fast to go through because it's all pictures, but each picture is filled with detail, and you can extrapolate so much context and meaning from it, even if there's no words.
So you said Matt Rhodes.
Yes.
All right. Well, that sounds like a pretty stellar recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy when I hear that artists are encouraging others to try. I think there's this weird. Well, okay. Some people may think that real life reflects. What's the rarity investigates, where the seasoned veteran doesn't want the up and comers stealing their spotlight. I found
Hmm.
that if you're it, that in a lot of industries there are people who want you to succeed.
Hmm.
Mostly because then they can know that there's someone who knows what they're doing, and they don't have to do it themselves. They don't have to do this alone.
Exactly. You need the new people to come in.
That's right. So it's not just a winner take all, and I'm always happy when that's reinforced.
Exactly.
Hmm. Champ is asking.
Especially like,
Hmm?
oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to prompt another question, but I want to hear this, especially like.
Oh, especially like there was this thing that Riot did I thought was really neat where they did this video series all about game art and explaining things more of a like on a beginner level, an intro level to game art and what all these different jobs entail, like game animation, concept artist, 3D modeler, character modeler. And they have a whole video series on YouTube about it. Like I think it's called like intro to game art or something. And for people who are trying to learn about the industry, it's really helpful, great video series. So it's that same thing of uh, industry veterans coming together to make a learning series for free on YouTube. It's neat.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. If anyone in the chat is interested in game art, I highly recommend watching it.
Because I wonder, you mentioned that Rhodes did a lot of Mass Effect and Dragon Age. I can imagine much of his concept art probably went to the dark. I mean, those.
Actually, no. What's surprising about Matt's art is that it's not really of like a realistic art style. What I thought that was really cool is that despite Mass Effect and Dragon Age being more on the realism side, his art has more of a comic book-y feel, including like using line art and simple shading to great effect. And a lot of his concept art just has to do with creating outfits and making little scenes for the characters interacting with each other to kind of get down the character interactions. And from what I've seen, there's not really a lot of dark stuff. It's mostly just general little character interactions and outfit concepts he made.
Huh. That's surprising, but also welcome. In a similar vein, I remember flipping through the My Little Pony movie art book, showed all the concept art,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the artwork looked like something out of a Lord of the Rings production,
Hmm.
or
Interesting.
or rather, the style was so high detail, and it looked
Mm-hmm.
like you could do a very high end fantasy off this, but these characters would then be translated into the show style. But the concept was a very different beast, literally. I think it was a rat based anthro.
Huh.
So
That's pretty cool.
yeah,
I'll
here
have to look into that.
I looked into that. I love concept art books. Video games come out, I get the concept art that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
Halo, Titanfall. Uh, let's see. Actually, I never did scope out The Last of Us. Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
So Metal Gear. I tend to enjoy the sci-fi fantasy genre of games, but you know, anything that can come with it. I never did.
Oh yeah.
There was a game for the Game Boy dual screen called The World Ends with You. I don't know if I
Oh
ever.
yeah.
I don't know if they ever had a concept art book for that. They should.
Hmm. I've definitely heard a bit about that one, and the art style is pretty cool. Sort of Kingdom Hearts esque, but a little more geometric, a little sharper, I guess.
Mm. Of course, I always love the. Well, I won't give away the plot of the movie of the game, but I will. one of my favorite lines from The World Ends With You is a character answers the phone. Hello, dead person speaking. It's like, well, you're quite laissez-faire about this.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't think I'd react so well. But that's as much of a spoiler as you're all getting. You're gonna have to either play the game or apparently watch the YouTube cutscenes.
Heck yeah.
Now, Champ to Stay has a question on travel. Do you have any railroad stories? Have you ever ridden a train like that?
Interesting. Now that's a question that's a bit out of nowhere, but I like it because I do have an answer for it. I rode on a train once, and it was on a trip from LA to San Francisco. No, San Diego, when I still lived in California. And it was part of like a homeschool group trip thing, like field trip. So a bunch of moms, kids went on a train down to San Diego, went and explored around a bit, and it was pretty fun. I liked the fact that you could get up and walk around, and it was more spacious than an airplane, the one we went on, so that was nice. But in fact, something recent that was pretty fun. I didn't ride on the trains, but there's a train museum in Galveston, Texas. It's like a little island right off the coast of Texas. It has so much history behind it. The island is practically bursting with history. There's a bunch of old buildings there that survived the Great Storm of 1900, which was a very traumatic time in Galveston's history, in the year 1900, this big storm came in and killed a lot of people and destroyed almost all of the buildings there. It's probably one of the worst results of storms of all time because the island is just like a sandbar, basically. But what's interesting about it is that the buildings that survived are still there on Galveston today, and they have this little plaque on them called Galveston 1900 Storm Survivor. So these are 120, 140-year-old buildings because they were built like 20 years before the storm. And they're beautiful, absolutely fascinating to look at, and you can really feel the history and the solidness of these buildings. Like, these guys survived one of the worst storms of all time. It's incredible. But anyway, back to the trains. There's a train museum there, and the building is more of a 1920s train station building, and they converted it to a museum. So when you go inside, you see, wow, this used to be a train station. They've got the chairs, the benches all around there. You can see where you would have gotten your ticket. There's phone booths, bunch of great stuff. And when you go out into the train yard, there's a bunch of old trains from from different eras there. There's one that was built in the 40s. That's more of a slick, silk stream type looking one. And there was this one, I think the oldest one there was literally around 1900s, 1890s when it was built. And you could tell it was quite old, especially because of the inside that had a lot more of a fancy feeling to it. You couldn't go inside that one though, because some of them you can't go into, but some of them they do let you go into, the different train cars. So we went into this old dining car, and this old lounge car, like a suite. It was really neat. And there was a lot of them, unfortunately, weren't in the best condition and definitely can't run anymore. Mm. But it was still fascinating. So that was something that happened. Yeah, streamlined. That was the word. Yes.
I imagine
it was fascinating. A lot of history.
I imagine my friend Sky has probably already seen this place. He's more traveled, but I'm going to ask him about it. He loves trains, passionate. So I feel like it's criminal if he hasn't gone to see it yet.
Mm-hmm. They have this whole section about specifically train in Galveston history, and the fact that I read about this in the Galveston history book too. The fact that the train railroad leading from the island to the mainland is what led to Southern forces recapturing the island during the Civil War, because at one point the Union recaptured it, but they didn't want to destroy the train lines to the mainland because they were too concerned about the people on the island not being able to get food and supplies and fresh water from the mainland. So they didn't destroy it, the bridge, but unfortunately that bridge is what allowed Confederate soldiers to easily get over the land and recapture the island. So that was an unfortunate piece of history in terms of that.
Mm.
But it has to do with the train lines in Galveston being a big part of a war front there during the Civil War. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I didn't fully appreciate the train roll in history. I mean, it's always been sort of a setting for a story, but I haven't been able to put myself in the historical mindset that these were lifelines.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that's often lost on me, that I have to remind myself, yeah, for people to see a train coming, that was hope approaching. And that means something right
Food,
there.
supplies, news. Oh, one of the best cars there was the mail car. It was this, I think it was 1910s era mail car that they had restored. And you could see these big hooks and stuff on the walls that where the mail bags would be held, as well as the wooden little grates that you'd put all the little letters into, individually sorting the letters. And apparently they had to sort like 800 letters an hour in order to be
Whoa.
continue to be hired. So it was a very high stress job. They had to sort these letters extremely fast.
Oh, that sounds terrifying. I have a nervous conniption. I mean it. I 800 an hour.
I believe that was the term. I've actually been 600, but that's still pretty overwhelming.
Immensely. To be honest, uh, I tend to think, oh, they probably were much more mellow back in the day, or jobs were simpler back then. It's like, nope, the stress is universal and timeless.
Yep.
And
Oh,
it's,
in terms of Champs saying what my thoughts are on Thomas and Friends, uh, I mean, I used to watch it as a kid, but I don't really watch it anymore. That's my entire thoughts on it. That's it.
oh no. And then there's a question from Preston Cox. Are you a fan of Kermit the Frog? Oh, most certainly. I even emulate his cheer every now and again. Yay! Just seeing him. Uh, I feel bad when it seems like the Muppets aren't as relevant as they once were, because they are a magnificent
Hmm.
piece of fiction. Although my favorites will always be the Swedish Chef and Beaker,
Yeah,
mostly because, well, I think that's where a good part of my love of slapstick came from. Inka,
makes sense.
do you watch? Have you watched a lot of the Muppets?
I think I saw a bit of the Muppet Show when I was a kid, but I definitely watched Sesame Street when I was a kid, as well as the Muppet movies. Yeah, and I liked the Muppet movies quite a bit.
Oh yes, those are a lot of fun. In fact, the night before, a friend had to have surgery, and she was very nervous. So the night before, she came over, and we watched The Great Muppet Caper as part of a general up all night. I wouldn't say this to her at the time, but I thought, well, you're gonna have anesthetic tomorrow. Me, I'm just gonna have coffee, and I hate coffee. I never developed a palate for it.
Same.
So, but it's funny when if I see the Great Muppet Caper now, I actually think of that night and just trying to be there for a bud, but also Miss Piggy. What an unbelievable coincidence!
Yeah. I think the one I saw the most was the Christmas Carol one.
Oh, I love that one. I watch that every Christmas. It
It's
gets me into the
so good.
spirit.
For sure.
Of course, one of the funniest things about Muppets is that it was sort of a test of the personalities, because some folks who appeared on the Muppet Show, they were great. They just adapt to it. You really believe that they loved being on stage with these Muppets. And then
Hmm.
there's like entertainers like Bob Hope, and he couldn't get into it. You could tell they were so very awkward performing with puppets. It just didn't make sense to
Yeah.
them. So watching some of the, I haven't watched the Muppet Show in a while, but it was sort of a testament of who's able to get into that believe. I imagine it looks very different when you can see the puppeteers, but who can get so into it that you believe you're talking to a real character or a real
Exactly.
a real individual?
Hmm.
I mean, Kermit and Gonzo and Miss Piggy are most certainly real characters. That's why
Yeah.
part of why we love them. Oh, I'm going on a Muppets nostalgia trip, as is my pet shop.
Exactly. It's great. So good.
Of course, now the question comes if Statler and Waldorf, the older guys, were heckling during one of my panels. Uh, I guess I try to roll with the humor. It's always weird though. Sarcasm, it's not something you want to escalate. It just becomes mean spirited.
Hmm.
But I wonder what would everyone's probably has to deal with the Statler and Waldorf at some point in there in either presenting uh, or just trying to get an idea out there. So I guess it's good to practice. They would be trial by fire in the extreme.
Yep.
Although, tell everyone a story. I had a brief legal career, and I was at a conference talking, and the presenter asked the audience, uh, how can you get more money from your clients? And I called out armed robbery. And the minute I knew I was not going to be in this field for very long, is that another person in the audience shouted out, "Raise your hand!" And I thought, well, clearly we are of two different mindsets here. So, no, other people thought the joke was funny, but I was like, okay. Actually,
Wow.
my thoughts were generally, well, you have a point, but also up yours.
Yeah. It'd be really funny. It's really funny thinking about you in that field.
Uh, it. I will say that part of my reviews, being able to articulate my thoughts, I think that was refined by my career as a paralegal, but it was not a field where I got to bring my humor to bear very much. I mean, if anything, it was very serious. So, not the best fit. That was just
Yep.
at the same time. That was just as I was getting into My Little Pony. So
Ah.
even before I started doing YouTube videos and comics right when I was transitioning out of law. So one one door closes, another opens.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Exactly.
let's see here. Now I get to do the fun part. How am I going to drawing Twilight's mom's reaction to my daughter?
Yeah.
My daughter is. I'm not going to have her be happy or charmed by this.
Be freaky.
Let's see. I'm thinking there's a series called the Hyperion Saga. 4 books, very dense, but wonderfully done. One of my favorite sci-fi stories. A character in that had, thanks to time, uh, well, basically reverse aging, he had to raise his daughter 3 times.
Whoa.
Once as, well, the natural flow. Once when she was being aged in reverse, and he had to find a way to save her before, she reversed all the way to preborn status. And then after, well, implied another time. So, yeah, I just thought, oh, wow, being a parent 3 times over.
I imagine that's what it's like having 3 kids, as my parents did.
Although I think the weirdness increases if it's the same kid over and over.
For sure, yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
Now, right now, I've actually got her looking quite proud, but let's add some wrinkles and lines.
Mm-hmm.
That'll convey it. And flatten out because I find that curves are usually, well, happy like smiles. Let's make this just a little bit more. Oh my gosh, what is happening?
I was not expecting to wake up to this today.
I'm a grandmother, dang it. I can't have a daughter like this.
Oh yeah, she is a grandmother. I never thought about that.
Actually, I think honestly, if she ever wrote a book on parenting, I raised the captain of the guard and the future ruler of Equestria. How to be an awesome mom in 10 easy steps.
Exactly. She's the kind of mom, like I feel like she'd be the kind of mom that like is constantly asking her kids, "So, what do you want to do when you grow up, and how are you going to get there? We must start making plans now." And then they just like she puts together like a game plan for what her kids are going to be doing and like how to properly get them to there. Because that was pretty much my mom.
Actually, there is a character in the later seasons. She is the mother of Sunburst, and her mode is very much that.
Mm.
I don't know. I kind of wondered if maybe her Twilight's mom is more just did she encourage in just the right way to foster growth rather than accomplishment? Because that's something. Well, that's something I've only learned a little bit about. There's an argument that if you only emphasize the test scores and the achievements and the awards, you are you are emphasizing outcome over process. But real
Mm-hmm.
success is encouraging process. So,
Hmm.
and I don't know, Twilight kind of demonstrates a little bit of both. She's very worried about outcome and status, but she's also very good at getting the process down.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. This is well, headcanon territory, character study, both of which I know you excel at.
Woohoo!
So, so in your eyes, Twilight Velvet, as I think is the fan name, or Velvet Sparkle, uh, she'd be more have a plan. So really asking her kids,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to do? Uh,
I imagine that she'd be much more encouraging about it though
mm.
than the Sunburst mom,
Oh, I wasn't sure
and
if you,
probably
I wasn't sure if you'd seen the episode.
I have not, but for what people are describing,
Well,
it seems like.
it's true. The same idea, but with a different approach, can be a world of difference in characters.
Mhm. I don't remember her Twilight's mom getting a lot of development. I think there was one episode when they went on like a cruise, though, right?
Yes,
Cruise. There was a lot of like princess thing going around and fanboys all around.
yes, including a guy named Star Chaser, who's I genuinely think the staff were drawing upon maybe some heartfelt but nervous fans that they'd encountered with him.
Yeah, it really felt like that. That's like one of the things I definitely remember. That it felt like this is definitely based on real experience from the writer's part.
And yet it's not saying, oh, look at this, aren't these people awful? No, it's just, hey, there are folks like this, but he was such a good kid at heart. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he really won people over. Certainly won me over.
Exactly.
There we go. I think
It
I'm
wasn't like a negative.
there we go. I think I'm starting to get the proper.
Yeah. I'm also doing a bit of drawing myself here on my iPad because it's one of those commission type works for a good friend of mine. So it's really fun to think about uh, how do I get the character's expression and their pose to really come out and express their personalities well. So that's what you're doing over here,
Yeah, it's part of the fun.
getting that right amount.
And it's fun to have sort of an art jam, just everyone do their things while they talk.
Hmm.
I sometimes worry I work on videos and graphics because it takes a good couple hours to get a OC post set or even just the graphics for our next video put together. And I worry I'm being a bad friend because I'm working while I'm talking with them, and I don't mean to, but I got to get it done. And
Yeah, exactly.
there are
Totally.
only so many hours in the day.
Hmm. Like I draw when I'm at church all the time. Well, when we were able to go to church before everything going on,
Mm.
and uh, but people always people like understood there that I wasn't like trying to be disrespectful at all. It's more just like this is what I do. And sometimes people would ask me like, "Oh, what are you drawing?" And I would show them. It's like nice, cool. And there's also this guy, and during worship, he actually goes up there with his full paint set and paints during the songs, and people will watch him paint as they're listening. So it's really neat, really fun, like encouragement of doing art, and it's nice.
I'm impressed. I'm not sure any church I've been to would be okay with me drawing during the sermon. It,
Yeah, ours is a very like small place, and uh, it's very community focused, and uh, like building connections and relationships with people. So that's part of it. And he's not like he's bringing all this paint stuff in like without permission. He does ask. They have like this whole thing set up where if he feels like it, he'll come in and do some painting. So it's more like he's doing art that's inspired by the worship music that's going on. And since I'm just like drawing on my iPad, it's not disruptive at all.
hmm. Honestly, I kind of wish more churches would take that approach. I feel like that's a good form of engagement.
Agreed. Yeah, it's really nice.
Uh, there's an old Whoopi Goldberg movie, Sister Act. Don't
The one
know.
with the nuns?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I have not seen it.
Oh, I see. You've had none of that. But in it, Whoopi's character changes some of the songs, and the priest notes that young teenagers were hearing this music and were coming in off the street to listen. And he was so while the more traditional sisters were highly offended. He was like, "No, this is great. This is we're actually getting people to come in. Keep doing this, please."
Hmm.
I just like, oh, that I'm glad. I
Very sweet.
so let's see. Pardon me, I haven't gotten to. Oh, well, I got a boo from Sweetie Bloom. Hello, Sweetie. And I know Golden Fox was in the chat for a while. Always good to see folks. Oh, let's see here. Magical Dude is asking, who's your favorite person to troll? Yeah, okay, I admit a clear bias towards Lightning Bliss because she makes those wonderful revenge videos. So that's probably one of my favorite trolls. Firebrand is a close second because of his extremes and his quiet indignity. I mean, honestly, people who have grand dignity are the best folks to troll. It's that offend.
Exactly.
It's that offended pride. Let's see here. I need to peruse my file library for a second because I need. I've drawn it so many times. I usually just copy over when a character is like raising their hoof, as it is. Well, a common horsey expression.
Yeah,
Let's see here.
I always found the lace to be pretty fun to draw on the ponies because they're simple, but they have like really in fun shapes to draw because they're so like simple in a nice way.
Oh,
Drawing the eyes at like a 3/4 angle was always one of the hardest parts, though,
oh,
on the ponies.
oh yeah. And yet, it's probably the most common view. I mean, head
Exactly.
viewing a pony in portrait style. That was my favorite because that was usually very nice and simple and often symmetrical.
Mm-hmm.
But not. But 3/4, all bets are off. So
Yeah.
let's see here.
I find it funny though that because for a long time I was just drawing ponies and it was fun and I learned a lot from it and I feel like a lot of the base of my style came from it too. And when I started to get back into drawing humans again, the reason was because of Legend of Zelda. And I was starting to get into the Zelda fandom. At that point, I was like, I want to draw Zelda fan art, but I'm kind of bad at drawing humans right now. So I had to. That was when I really started getting into studying stuff and looking at poses and taking pictures of myself doing different things so that I could look at those as reference for my poses. And that was like a big evolution in this change of art style was uh, getting into the Zelda fandom. Thought that was kind of funny, and it kind of kept evolving forward as things went on. And but I attribute ponies definitely a lot to my establishment of drawing in my art style and starting to write more stories again and learning about backgrounds of how the shows are made and being able to see people that worked on shows in real life. Though I didn't interact too much with staff, unfortunately, it was really cool being able to see them.
Yeah, I don't know if people fully appreciate all that goes into a show.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why when one of the critiques I don't like hearing people say is either lazy or they didn't care. How do you know these things? Have you asked them? Are
Mm-hmm.
are you? It can I can understand that something didn't receive the time it that could have made it stronger, or or there's a lot of contradictions that could have done with a second or third review of the script. Fair enough. But to declare that you know exactly the mindset that the creative staff was doing, that I think goes over the line into hubris.
Agreed. Agreed. Yes. And then those things kind of get spread around as rumors, and then people suddenly start to all believe that that's actually what happened behind the scenes, even though you have no idea if that actually is what happened or not. There might be evidence that it seems like there is, but there's not never really any true understanding of what happens behind the scenes unless you were there yourself. So it can be very hard to talk about that kind of stuff without any form of bias or uh, just plain making things up and just guesswork.
Mm. And I can provide a example for. Whoa! I phased
Mm.
Twilight's mom into the wall. Uh, I could I could provide an example of that from my time, and this will also answer a question from the chat. Pokemon or Digimon? I'm more a Digimon guy. That was my jam, and there were so many dub jokes in Digimon that people started to project a negative view of Jeff Nimoy, the scriptwriter for the English dub. He was under basically a corporate mandate to make it funny, add jokes that,
Mm.
and yet everyone assumed that he was just enjoyed ruining the original script or disrespecting the
Oh no.
characters. And he had to contend for a long time with fan hostility as a result. And I admit I was new to the fandom. I took that in without questioning, so I too jumped on that train, and I shouldn't have.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I've tried to take that to heart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gotta been quite hard for him.
Well, he thankfully I think the fandom had a counter movement to treat him better, and he's actually celebrated as writing one of the best dubs now for a
Oh,
Digimon movie, which, as far as I know, has never
cool.
gotten video release, which is a crime. It, it had like one airing on ABC Family, and that was that. Vexing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, I think Twilight's mom looks sufficiently amazed, horrified, ker- uh, kerfuffled.
Careful.
All right, but she's also floating in midair. We need to give her a shadow. There's no Peter Pan syndrome here.
Yeah,
Let's see. I don't like
she better have one, or else there's some shenanigans going on.
Twilight. Is your mom a vampire? In which case,
Yeah,
can she talk to Fluttershy?
she's had some experience with the subject.
There we go. And then let's see here. I don't know. In terms of proportions, I think this is a good size for the infants against an adult pony. I mostly go by head size.
Yeah,
Maybe the kids will be just a hair bigger.
it's fun seeing vector work, working with vectors. It's been a long time since I did have worked in vectors, so it's really cool to see you working in vectors.
What's your preferred program of use?
Oh, well, because I used to use Illustrator all the time when doing pony stuff, vector work. Now I'm using Photoshop and this app on iPad called Procreate, which is like specifically made for touchscreen use with iPad Pro and the iPad Pencil. I used to very much dislike working on iPads, but then with the new iPad Pro and Pencil, they really like made it perfect for artists to use, and now it's just about as good as using a uh, Cintiq or other Wacom type tablet.
Oh, that's good because I looked at a video tablet, and that's like $1,000.
Yeah,
It's like I don't think I could justify this.
yeah,
All right, now Cadence.
but
I mean, this is a dual play date, so Cadence is in on this, and I think she'd be reacting as well. Just making sure here. Oh, yes, this is from my
I wonder.
early days when I outlined everything. But Cadence and humor are a bit of an oddball. She's meant to be the straight person, the non comedic reaction that
Hmm.
paradoxically is supposed to be funny. And let's see, can I nestle Cadence right between the folds so she's kind of Ooh, no. There we go.
Who's going to be standing on the other side?
I'm gonna have Spike as he's gonna be sort of presenting like, well, here you go. It's like, I cared for your daughter for like a day, and I've decided I don't want to be a parent. I can only imagine. Plus, I still call it dirty pool that his friends just sort of bailed on him.
Yeah. Oh, Cotton Lum pointed out Procreate is the name of the company. Yikes. Actually, it's the name of the app itself. It's called Procreate. I know. There's one time when I was mentioning the app to someone, and they're like, "What is it called?" No, 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 no. It means Procreate,
No,
not that other way.
I confess, my college humor was kicking into high gear there. It's like,
Yeah. And it, it makes me think like, oh, if they'd only called it like Create Pro or something, that would have been a bit easier. I don't know why they decided to call it that, because people would just get confused,
well,
very confused.
I have to wonder, would you do that intentionally, just because word of mouth would clearly? Are you actually banking on people having a juvenile sense of humor about it?
I would have thought that, but the company, like they're on their social media, they don't seem to acknowledge it at all. It's more just fairly professional. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe it's a foreign company. Maybe that's why. And they chose the name because they didn't know it had an alternative meaning in English.
I shouldn't assign a motive. But I could find it funny sales pitch. No, it'll be great. We'll call it Procreate, and everyone will be talking about it on social media and jokes, and we'll get all the free marketing because they think we're talking about something else.
Yeah.
I'm a
So,
marketing genius. No, I have a program. It's a free version that turns your tablet into a a remote control. Well, basically a graphics tablet, but I haven't really relied on it too much. Mostly because I feel like that's for painting, whereas this vector work is almost
yeah.
like architecture.
Hmm.
Although that's not necessarily fair. Architects need to paint an image too.
Hmm.
I don't know much about architecture though. Can I describe it? No, I can't.
Yeah. Like vector work can be done with a mouse pretty easily in comparison with other stuff. But like, um, my mom uses a little tablet for her graphic design work because she just finds it easier on the wrist.
Mm.
So generally, I guess it's better for the wrist when you're doing mouse work to use a tablet, but like it's perfectly fine to use a mouse, and that's what's so cool about vector art in that sense.
I agree. I make sure to have at least have a wrist rest on mouse pads. You know,
Mm.
little gel ball, because carpal tunnel is a real thing, and it ain't fun.
Yep. I experienced that this month, and that's why I wasn't drawing as much this month.
Oh,
It was not fun. And then I got like, because I was relying on my left hand a bit, I was playing that new game Valorant, and I was using my pinky so much to press shift that I ended up actually pinching my nerve in my left arm.
oh,
And thankfully, it wasn't like painful. It was more just like my pinky finger was feeling numb and like getting that like weird feeling in it where it's like the static E type feeling, and I just had to do like workouts with my arm to try to set it right. And thankfully, it's doing fine now. But it was really weird.
oh.
I had never experienced that before. So you have to take care of your arms, guys, as an artist, because it's really important.
Okay, I'm just gonna pause for a second to appreciate the horrors that I sometimes create while vectoring. It's like, and
Yeah.
this is when Cadence lost her mind.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It makes me think someone use that as an icon as their avatar.
I'll look into it. I can always go back and change things. Yes, my new screen name will be Crazy Cadence for when I want to be incognito.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta have those alt accounts.
That's right, the internet with 1,000 identities. Yes, henceforth I shall be Teal Quill.
Teal quill. Or golden quill. Or their lesser known cousin, bronze quill.
Oh, that's that's the black sheep of the family. No one wants to talk about the bronze.
Yep.
It's all about proud gold, social silver, or shameful bronze.
Whoops. I can only imagine the lore behind why he's the black sheep.
Oh, who would be the black sheep?
Oh, that's a good one, Jonah. Platinum Quill, the snobby cousin.
Oh, yes, we don't talk about cousin Bronze. Oh, no. He's never worked a proper day in his life. There we go. Yeah, I think that works pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, Flurry.
Have you ever done?
Hmm?
Have you ever done like a backstory on your character?
Funny enough, I act well. Not necessarily a backstory into what he's about, but how being part pony and part griffin is sort of this tumult inside him because the instincts are all over the place. For for those who don't know, traditional hippogriffs, not necessarily of the show, they are the offspring of a horse and a griffin. So they're often a symbol of love, as the griffins usually eat horses. So it is the union of two natural enemies. But I just thought of, like, with Silver-Quill, that means part of his digestive tract might want to eat his collaborators, but his more social side is like, no, I'm part pony. That's cannibalism. And thus he's a step away from either freaking out and running to the hills or going on a somewhat carnivorous rampage. And that
What an interesting moral quandary.
moral quandary, hard to be at an all you can eat buffet. So I kind of play on that. That's why I describe why Silver is so bonkers and can seemingly shift between extremes. The conflict within is so great that it physically manifests in costumes and role changes.
Nice.
So that's my story, and for now I'm sticking to it.
Very cool.
And let's see here. Now I'm doing a mistake here because I've got one shadow, another shadow, and like a Venn diagram. They're overlapping. That's not good. We will make them whole and we'll group them. And
Yes.
yes, I shall be like a musician and have groupies.
Exactly. All those little tips and tricks in these programs to get things looking right.
And
You have to
Frostbite.
remember what steps to do in which order.
And then I usually have to go back as I remembered, oh, that's how I'm supposed to do this. Right.
Yeah. Oh, this layer should actually be here, not here.
Although I think Frostbite in the chat has the right of it. I love to create accidental monstrosities.
Yes.
Because those are the bestest kind.
Uh-huh. It makes me think of that. Thinking of pony monstrosities makes me think of that like horror game Pony where you play as Applejack. What was it? The story of the blanks or
Oh,
something, where she goes into that village.
oh yes. I don't think I read that, but I know of it. I've seen some pretty scary artwork as a result.
Yeah, I just remember playing the little pixel art game version of it at one point when I was younger, and I couldn't finish it because it scared me. Maybe I did finish it. I don't know, but I remember that was so scary to me when I was a kid. And looking back on it, it was kind of fun that there were those little games, and I don't think I've ever really quite found a fandom. Well, I guess the Star Wars fandom is comparable, but I always was impressed at how creative the MLP fandom was and how we're like one of the only fandoms ever to make fan episodes that are actually 22 minutes long. One can debate the quality of them, but the fact that they exist is pretty cool
I
and very unique.
I agree. I mean, really, the only thing comparable is the few abridged series out there, like Dragon Ball abridged or Sword Art Online abridged. But those are, I'd argue that the MLP fandom has produced much more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, it is quality is still very much a issue with some, but they do. But the heart is there and the creativity is there. It's just a matter of refinement,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there will be a great deal of refinement.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Oh, I hear.
Oh,
Oh,
there.
oh darn! I hear someone follows, and just like that, the stream goes pauses on me. So double darn.
Oh, oh, it's Princess Sunshine Sparkle is now following.
Oh, marvelous. Well, thank you, Princess Sunshine Sparkle, which I'll cross that off the list of things I never thought I'd say. You go back
Yeah.
you go back to high school me and say, "Yeah, one day you'll be thanking Princess Sunshine Sparkle." It's like, "Who are you? Get out of my house."
Yeah. Oh, a question from Matt Entenman. Another question for Ink Rose. What projects are you currently working on?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. So I mentioned Spectral Lakes as well as Dragon Queen. So those are the two books I'd written. And so I'm in the middle of writing a sequel to Spectral Lakes because it's more of a episodic type of thing. And I'm working in the middle of working on a sequel to that. Though it's a little on hold because I'm currently working on a reboot of Dragon Queen with a lot kind of the artwork of me like right here on the stream. That's gonna be the new design of the main character, and I'm mostly rebooting it because I've learned so much about writing and art in the years since I wrote it in high school. I mean, I've been through college since I wrote it, and um, it's like really, really fun rewriting it because I'm adding so much stuff and like a lot of world building improvements. So alongside that, I'm also doing my I mentioned like I have three main universes, and the third one is the one inspired by like retro music and electro swing, which is a retro futuristic sci-fi world, which is very kind of bubble pop happy, but with some. It's basically um, more cartoony and fun,
Whoa.
and that is called Mariposa and the Universe Man, and it's about a alien girl who's half human called Mariposa, and she lives on a space animal reserve that basically takes in wild animals from space and like he helps them heal and rehabilitate before releasing them back into the wild. So she works with a lot of like weird alien creatures and helps heal them. But then there's this weird creature that crash lands onto the moon of her planet. She goes and finds it, and it turns out to be a guy called the Universe Man, and he's a guy that's like made out of stars and galaxies. And so it turns out that there's these two rival energy companies that are trying to search for him and find him and use him for like a source of everlasting energy because he's got so many little suns and stars within him. And so Mariposa has to go on a quest to help him get to the center of the universe. And along the way, they meet a lot of fun characters and go to different planets. And yeah.
Nice. You're getting to really stretch your imagination there. Just create something literally out of this world.
Exactly. It's really fun, but also can be very difficult. And I will definitely say that my time in the MLP fandom and writing headcanons helped me immensely in terms of figuring out how I would write my own stories. And it was really fun.
Oh, I'm glad. That's heartening to hear. That's the hope. All everything fans do, I hope, is contributing towards future creativity. It doesn't have to be pony related.
Mm-hmm. Shattuck and Blaze Hedgehog and the cat asks, Inkros and Sweetie Bloom, do you ever feel like you have a game you didn't want to finish, but you want to finish? Um, there's a lot of there's a lot of games I need to finish right now. So I guess so. Yeah, it's like I want to finish them, but then when I think about actually having to start up the game, I'm like, I don't know. I could be working on something productive right now. So there's always that back and forth of wanting to play and then wanting to do something productive so that you feel like you've done something with your day. A lot of creatives go through this.
I guess it's that question of doing something fun for yourself as opposed to I've got so much work I need to do. Well, you'll do the work better if you give yourself permission to have some fun.
Yes.
That's my theory anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I say that.
Well, plus there's. Oh, go ahead.
I say that having not played a game all week, like you should probably give yourself a little fun.
Yep. Very important. Like just recently, stuff I've played has inspired me in the world of like 3D art. Like looking at Valorant's character art as I'm playing it, I was like in my head trying to figure out how they did certain things to get a certain look, and I was able to figure that out, and now have another little page of knowledge to use in the future. So doing, even though it seems like it's just pointless fun and procrastination, doing video games and watching movies and things can be a good way to do some research for your own. I just rewatched the Avatar movie, like the big one, the one with the blue people. I rewatched that recently after a long time, and I was noticing a lot of things I didn't appreciate as much when I was younger, like the way they did certain effects and blended the reality with the CGI. That was really new for the time and interesting. So there's a lot you can learn from entertainment.
Makes sense. I know Avatar gets a lot of flack for its story, but visually and effects wise, it was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I
And there's a lot of like little character, little writing moments that I actually appreciate a lot more now that I'm older. Stuff that I didn't realize was as it's actually there's some actually pretty good moments in that story. The plot might be pretty cliche, but there's some uh, stuff that I appreciate was told through the visuals. That was pretty cool, and it helps that I also after watched the documentary of how they made it, and there's so much that went on behind the scenes that was fascinating, and again a great learning opportunities for people looking to get in there, that type of environment, or just want to see cool problem solving stuff, movies.
can you give an example from Avatar of a character moment that really you're like, I didn't recognize that at first?
Yeah, um, I would say it's the part. There's a couple little parts, but one thing that stood out to me that I forgot about when I watched it when I was younger is that there's this the nerdy scientist character who is kind of he's more of a minor character, but he ends up going on the side of Jake and the rest of the Navi aliens. He fights alongside them all during the final battle, and he's in his avatar when he's fighting. But then when he gets shot down when he's in his avatar, and then you see this shot of him coming out of the little pod, and he's like his body is like shaking because his body feels like it should be dead when it's not. It's just the avatar body that's dead. So he's like kind of shaking, and it's almost looked like his body is just freaking out because it's trying to figure out what's going on. So I thought that was a really interesting moment of, and also when in the extended cut, there's this little moment where Neytiri, after Jake has like got his little dragon, he like connects with the dragon, he's flying off. She yells like, "Hell yeah!" And it's a little moment of showing that she's learned from him as well as he's learning from her. So there's some more I could go on about, but there's just little things that I thought were pretty interesting.
That's cool. And I forget the nerdy character's name, but now that you mention it, the fact that he gets up, I remember he gets up, grabs a gun and a oxygen mask, and goes out to keep fighting again.
Yeah, yeah.
He just died, and he's getting up to fight again.
That says a lot about him.
Yeah, that's a. I don't know. I don't know many people who could say that. I mean, once was enough. Thanks. I'm good.
Hmm.
I'll be over here trying to remember that I still have blood pumping.
Yeah.
So, that's an excellent point. Just reinterpreting something that people often give a pass on.
Hmm. And finding and appreciating stuff you might not have appreciated before. It's always it's kind of like a positive experience for yourself. Is trying to find things you really like in something that you didn't think you would.
Yeah, so I worry too. I worry that we've overpopularized just being mad at a piece of work.
Hmm.
Uh, I
For
don't.
sure.
Although I confess, I feel like I make this point every week, but I probably will keep making it. Negativity is a gimmick. It attracts people for a little bit, but eventually it poisons the well.
Agreed. Balance is always necessary. And certain YouTube channels like only are negative, and sometimes it can be really fun. Sometimes it's really fun to bag on something, but other times, uh, especially when you see how people have worked on it and that so much effort goes into these things. Now, effort doesn't equal quality necessarily, but sometimes it makes you want to re-examine things because you want to see what the creator saw in it, and you want to try to appreciate what the creator was trying to accomplish, even if they didn't accomplish it in the best way.
Or maybe by saying what. Okay, here's what they were going for. What didn't work? What could change? Then you transform the negative into a positive.
Yeah.
What really what really grips you? There's a there's a YouTube channel like Stories of Old that I really enjoy. It looked at the first Spider-Man trilogy and honestly did a really great character study of growth for both Peter and Mary Jane. Now that doesn't make especially the third Spider-Man any less corny in its
Mm-hmm.
execution, but it's like, okay, I see where he's coming from. That's really makes me appreciate it more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see here.
Agreed.
Spike's claws are looking a little flat there. Let's change things up. This is why I love vectors. I mean, nothing beats digital painting to create a realism look. But for flexibility, I will trumpet vectors from the rooftop.
Heck yeah. I
Now,
could say a game that I really think of a lot when I think of the term missed potential, or something that is technically not that great, but I really, really enjoy it nonetheless, is Detroit Become Human, because there are certain segments of that game that just feel very cheesy and not well written at all. And then there are other segments that really capitalize on the true potential of it and make you go, wow, wow, that's really cool. I wish there was. I wish the whole game was like this. So it's one of those things where it's almost tragic that there are good parts because they really show you what it could have been, but it still makes you appreciate the good parts even more.
which is, I think, one of the highest forms of offering a review. Just give someone something new to think about. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I think negativity. Sadly, we all have a disposition towards the negative. I think we're trained to look for it, to be on guard, but to point out the positive in something. That
Mm-hmm.
I think that takes sometimes even greater work and insight.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. I always appreciate when a reviewer, even if they don't like something, or even if they really don't like something, they do take the time to point out what that thing did well. So it's always nice to know that there's usually at least something good in every piece of media. So when you acknowledge, oh, it did this thing well, then it's always a nice little moment that they're not like completely biased against it.
Hmm.
And being unbiased completely is impossible. But when you at least try to give a a fair review, it's always good to at least try.
Yeah, just give it a fair shake. And I find if you have a negative opinion, but you're willing to acknowledge the good, people will actually say, okay, yeah, I'll accept that. It's amazing how you can avoid a lot of the problems that people lament. Oh, all these fans are just harping on me. Well, maybe if you maybe if you mixed a little bit of praise in with the critique, you diffuse the situation. Is that really so bad? Honest,
Hmm.
and honestly, I have to wonder if you can't find the good in something, are you really looking?
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty, and here we go. Well, we're about at the time limit because well, actually, we're a little over because I don't want to monopolize everyone's time, but so I think this has come together pretty well. I mean,
It has.
poor Spike. It's like, yeah, so
Yeah.
this is a thing that's happening,
Hmm.
and Flurry Heart is just like, yay, playmate.
Yeah, this came together pretty quickly, actually.
Well, it helps that I had these pre-made bases. I find that
Heck yeah.
having these are very very helpful. Of course, they all stare into my soul when I'm working on them. Like ah. Uh, in the meantime, I am gonna make some vectors of these toys and scatter them around because it's a play date. Really want it to look like a play area. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that'll be worthy of its own stream as it's just background or excess material now. So, well, but I guess it really depends on what can I finish in the coming week. Because there's a lot going on. Pony Life starts, well, technically starts on Sunday, as it's aired in Canada on Treehouse.
Hmm.
So I'm sure that we'll see many a reaction from fans. I'll do my best to add my voice. And then I can really put myself to the test. Do I like it? Do I not? And can I be positive or negative in balance? Ooh, a
Hmm.
challenge. So, uh, do have one last question from the audience I want to answer because Champ to Stay has been very patient. Uh, what is the weirdest comparison you ever made of to an episode of character in MLP? Uh, Basically, what's a strange comparison that you use to either clarify an idea or remark on an episode?
Hmm. I don't know if I have an answer for that. I hmm. I'm afraid I don't have an answer for that.
Let's see.
I would have to really like almost look back at my videos to see what kind of comparisons I made.
See. I mean, I recently compared an episode to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and a '90s cartoon that was spun off from it. But I can't say
Oh,
that's the weirdest. The strangest comparison I've ever made. Well, you know what? When actually I can make an anticipatory. I'm going when a comic, My Little Pony meets Transformers: Friendship in Disguise. I'm gonna make the comparison that Applejack is the Optimus Prime of her group. And I will make that argument in due time. I'll leave everyone hanging, try to tantalize, but that's an odd comparison to make, I think.
hmm.
Oh, one other last question because I'm good at multiple lasts. Uh, are you a fan of Godzilla by chance?
I'm not really a fan, but I do think the concept is pretty cool.
Might Godzilla influence a space being or two in your new project?
Oh, if you're talking about giant monsters, then yes.
Yeah, the general kaiju idea, giant monster.
Yes, for sure.
Excellent. Well, I don't mean to script for you, but there's an option. So,
Yeah.
well, Ink, it has been wonderful to catch up with you and just to hear that all that you're striving for and accomplishing.
I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you reaching out too.
I did think we haven't got to talk since I think 2017. So like, oh, let's gotta fix that. And
Yeah.
and once again, happy birthday.
Thank you.
So, and to everyone else, just want to say thanks for lending your time and taking an investment in our stream and projects. I hope you'll check out Ink Rose's website, her book projects, and her art station. I hope we can all cheer her on as she moves towards her next goal.
Thank you.
So, to everyone else, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Be well, stay safe, and we will catch you next time. So, I'm Silver Quill. Thanks for watching.